All right, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So the slides are actually provided by the author, William Stannings, but I have to really give you that disclaimer. I made significant changes to these slides. So whatever is in the slides, you are requested to know it, and whatever is not in the slides, you are not requested to know it, at least for the exam. Okay, so if something is here, and even if it's not in the book, even if it's not in the original slides, okay, and I bring it in the exam, don't tell me that, you know, that topic was not discussed, or that topic was not discussed in the book or the slides. We discussed it in class. Everything is recorded, okay? So I record for myself, so I don't have students recording for me. So I record everything. Okay, so as a brief introduction, so this introduction gives you some idea about the basic concepts, the basic terminology related to security. It's very basic. For some of you, it might be like a little bit boring, especially if you have gone through some security courses before. But let's agree on this terminology so that if there are some differences, you need to stick with these terminologies. So before the widespread use of data processing equipment and the internet, the only way to secure things is physical. So we take things, we put it in the drawer, we lock it with the key. That's the only way we secure things. But with the proliferation of all the digitization and the internet and the digital content and stuff like that, so now we have to get into the cyber world, and we have to, to try to secure digital content. So there was the need, a major need for techniques and services related to how to secure the digital content. So another major change that happened is the widespread use of distributed systems. And that's the main motivation of this course, because when it comes to securing information by storing it, that's not actually the main scope of the course. This is like maybe covered in another course like information security or something. But for this course, we are concerned with how to secure information while it's being exchanged between one or two or multiple parties. Okay? So in a big distributed systems, information is being exchanged back and forth. Like the biggest distributed systems is, of course, the internet or the ad hoc networks or the different types of networks, whether it's wireless or wired or telecom or cellular network or something like this. So while the information is being exchanged, we need to make sure that this information is secure. So we need to discuss what are the basic concepts and the pillars of how to secure this information. What are these pillars? And while securing this information, what are the techniques and mechanisms? And what are the services and protocols? And what is the difference actually between both? What is the difference between these aspects or this terminology? All right, so with that came the concept of computer security. And computer security is like the generic umbrella, the generic umbrella of the collection of tools designed to protect data and to stop hackers. Yeah, this is the major generic computer security. It talks about how to secure the digital content, in general, okay? But there is the internet security or network security, which is the main focus of this course, which talks about when it comes to internet with the letter I, this means any interconnected collection of networks, okay? Which is slightly different from the internet with capital I, which refers to the public network. Public network is the public internet. But of course, in order to make data secure, we have to have private networks or VPN or something like this. So that's what we need to focus on as part of this course. How to secure digital content, but while it's being communicated. So it consists, so internet security or network security talks about it consists of measures to deter يعني to deviate the hackers from being able to attack our system, okay? or to prevent or to detect. Sometimes I can detect, but I don't have to prevent. Okay, so and correct security violations that involve the transmission of information. This is the keyword. This is the important keyword. ماشي? While it's being transmitted. ماشي كده؟ طيب. So throughout this course, we'll talk about 3 or 4 different standard bodies. When we talk about standard, يعني إيه standard أصلا؟ أو يعني إيه standard? What is the meaning of standard?
Well known.
Well known إيه؟
I mean, organizations.
Something to follow.
Huh?
Something we all agree on.
We all agree on. Yes,
And to
yes.
follow also.
Yes, perfect. Okay. So it's a set of specifications for a protocol or service that everybody agrees on. When everybody agrees on, what is the implication of this? Yeah, we can use it, but we can use it, yes, but even if we have 2 different vendors or multiple vendors, okay, whom they have different products, okay, these products, if they use the standard, despite the fact that these are different vendors, but they will be able to communicate with each other. They will be able to exchange information, okay? So that's what standards mean. Since we agree upon it, then we can use it to talk to each other, even if we have some differences, because we agree on something, okay? And that's what standard means. So throughout this course, we'll talk about standard bodies. One of the, it's the most important really in the field of security, which is NIST. Okay, NIST is the national institution in the US, of course, and they are concerned with all security standards. They focus mainly on security standards. Unlike other standard bodies like ITU or ISOC, okay, they focus on standards for telecommunication, okay, and part of it is security. But NIST, they focus on security mainly, okay. So NIST, they have a group called FIBS, or they have a subgroup called FIBS, and this is like subgroup inside NIST, which is concerned with some specific standards. One of these standards, or one of these detailed specification, is FIBS 199. In FIBS 199, they lay out the foundation of computer security in general. They give like basic definition of what computer security is, what is the main architecture or the common architectures for computer security, and we'll talk about also security models. What are the main security models which we use to exchange information and things like that. So in this FIBS 199, they give the basic definition of what computer security is, and they define it as the protection afforded to an automated information system in order to attain applicable objectives, such as, and this is the important part, we have 3 pillars, 3 major pillars for securing information. We have integrity, we have availability, and we have confidentiality, okay? Which they summarize it into the CIA triad, or the 3 pillars of security, the CIA triad. So we'll talk about the differences between integrity, availability, and confidentiality in a minute. Some of you, of course, are already aware of this. And this information system actually includes resources, and these resources could be like software resources or hardware resources, okay, and telecommunication. So computer security again is the big umbrella, which includes securing any type of information or resource or system, anything, okay, whether that information is being stored, communicated, anything, okay. So the CIA triad talks about 3 pillars, and of course, what do we mean by pillars? Pillars, like, these are the minimum requirements for securing any kind of information. But as you all know, pillars are not enough. They are good, they are very important, they are critical, they are the minimum requirements. But sometimes there are much more than just pillars. So when I build a house, I need pillars, of course, but I need, walls and I need other things, right? So these are the minimum requirements. So when we talk about, first, usually we talk usually about confidentiality first. What is confidentiality? Confidentiality is all about ايه؟
Privacy.
ما لازم تساعدوني يعني. ها؟
Privacy.
Privacy is a small part, but the main idea of confidentiality.
Only people who have access
To the information can access.
have access to the data.
Or it can, the information is only
لا
available.
هو this definition kind of overlaps with other things like access control and other things and authentication and other things. So the proper definition is that confidentiality is all about concealing information, hiding information, concealing information. Okay. So if we are exchanging some information, this information should be hidden. Hidden from who? From illegitimate, from any kind of illegitimate user. Okay? So if someone tries to listen, that's why this picture, someone tries to listen, okay, they cannot distinguish or they cannot identify any information. So confidentiality is all about hiding or concealing information. As some of you might say, okay, so this is cryptography. It's not just cryptography. It's not, so cryptographic techniques are very important for confidentiality, but they are not enough. Okay? So these are pillars, and we'll talk about them in a later stage as security services. Okay? And we'll talk about what do we need to enable the security service. Okay, type. Number 2 is integrity. What is integrity? Protecting information from from being altered. Bravo Ali. Okay, so if I have information, this information might be actually secure, hidden, like nobody can listen to it. So we protect it. We think that by hiding and concealing the information, now it's secure. No, because while it's being stored or it's being communicated, someone can actually, alter this information, insert something in the middle. Okay? If someone alters this information, okay, at least you should be able to detect that. And in that case, if you detect it, you can reject it. Okay? So integrity is all about protecting information from being altered. This is the rough definition. We'll get into details. Type. Availability. What is availability? Okay.
When you need the data, they are available when you need them.
Okay, that's good. That's a very important part of it. Availability means that the resource of or information should be accessible on time by the legitimate user. Okay? Which means that as long as I have the proper, credentials to access something, I should not get into that resource or try to access this information and somebody tells me it's not available or come next day and I'll give you access to it. That's not acceptable. Okay? So that's not availability. And usually this pillar or this service is the trickiest service to support, is the most difficult one to support. Okay, as we all know, even Google, they went down at some point. Facebook, they went down. WhatsApp went down at some point. Okay? You can never have 100% availability. There is no such thing. Okay? So that's why, again, one of the major types of security attacks, okay, they try to attack availability by doing what? Denial of service, distributed denial of service attacks. Distributed denial of service attacks are one of the very common attacks and very tricky to mitigate. You can, very hard to stop, very hard to stop. And we'll talk about why. Okay, example, مثلا what happened in the blockade. You remember the blockade started with this. Distributed denial of service attack, brought all the services down, okay, and then started from there. So usually distributed denial of service attack is one of the trickiest thing, and availability is very hard. And as I said, even big technology companies, they went down at some point. So you cannot have 100% availability. And again, availability is information or resource must be accessible on time by legitimate user. So this is the rough definition of these three pillars. So in order to provide the minimum requirements for security, we need to have these pillars. And we'll talk about some other standard bodies which provide other types of also services and pillars, at least from their perspective, regarding how to secure information. So confidentiality talks about two types, as you said, two types. Data confidentiality talks about how to assure that confidential information is not made available or disclosed to unauthorized users or attackers, okay? So we need to hide any type of information. When it comes to privacy, it's a branch of confidentiality. Privacy talks about how to mitigate or how to protect the individual's identity. Okay? That when I try to access a system, nobody will be able to know my name, my national ID, my credit card information. These are private information that should be protected. So it's, again, it's the biggest umbrella is confidentiality. Privacy talks about how to protect the disclosure of individuals' identity. Okay? So for example, a very common example, مثلا, in healthcare domain, when I store or communicate a patient record. A patient record is like what? It's like personal information. It may have my national ID, my kada, ماشي, and some maybe disease I have or something. And it may have like some vital signs like ECG or EEG or any kind of vital signs, okay? So if I can hide the patient's identity, okay, for anyone to see like an EEG or ECG, what type of information did he get? Probably nothing. You see like some signal. ماشي? But the most important thing is privacy. In that case, I need to hide the patient's identity. Once I hide the patient's identity, I don't care about maybe the data itself. Sometimes I don't need to hide the data itself because accessing the data itself does not give you any information. You have EEG signal, but the most important thing is how to associate this to a specific patient or to a specific individual. Okay, that's the breach. That's the violation. Okay, so confidentiality is like basic information or basic data confidentiality or concealment. Privacy talks about how to hide the individual's identity. When it comes, any question? Feel free to interrupt. When it comes to integrity, again, it talks about data integrity and system integrity. When it comes to data integrity, we talked about that. We conceal the information, we hide it, we communicate it, and all of a sudden someone comes in between and inserts something, okay, into the data. If you don't have the mechanism to detect that this data has been altered, then, in fact, the data sometimes might become useless. Imagine if you are like sending a zip file and someone inserts something inside the zip file. The whole zip file becomes useless. Okay? So sometimes if you alter the data in any way, even sometimes if you duplicate parts of the data, I just need to get part of the data and insert it again, like put it twice, like duplicate part of the information that is being communicated. Just by doing that, sometimes the data becomes useless. So the integrity of the data is affected. مفهوم؟ Okay? So altering the data is not integrity, or it violates integrity. When it comes to system integrity, we talk about distributed system, and we are compromising or altering part of that distributed system. So we might actually alter or compromise a device or a router, right? So just by altering the router or altering a device, we might affect the entire system. We might affect the integrity of the entire system. صح? So that's the difference between data integrity and system integrity. Any question? واضح? Okay. Again, when it comes to availability, يعني this is the trickiest part. So we'll talk about denial of service attack and how we can mitigate it and appreciate the fact that it's really hard to mitigate. So in addition to this, in addition to NEST, again the book lists some information, and just to make it in context, would like to highlight this information is summarized where. So in addition to NEST, there is the standard ITU-T, International Telecommunication Union. Bardo, this is ITU-T is one of the standard bodies that talks about standards related to any kind of telecommunication system, and of course, naturally, part of it is security. Okay, so ITU-T also has some set of specification documents where they also try to lay out the foundations of basic concepts regarding security. And ITU-T has the X800 document, which in addition to, of course, confidentiality and availability and all of this, it also highlights two important services in addition to these three services, two important services including authenticity, okay, and accountability. So before we discussed confidentiality, integrity, availability. So now we have two more, which is authenticity and accountability. Authenticity here focuses on what? Focuses on verifying that users are who they say they are. So when I try to access a system, I need to make sure that the user who's accessing the system is indeed the one who says he is or she is. Okay? And one very simple way of assuring this is by a user ID and password. So I need to have credentials. So when you try to access the system, I cannot fool you with anyone else. I cannot really say that I don't know who is accessing that the system or this part of the system. So you always have a way. So a mechanism for this, of course, could be user ID and password, could be like similar to Blackboard, or two-factor authentication, things like that. So this is the actual technique or mechanism that I can use to provide authenticity or authentication. We'll talk about authentication a lot as part of this course. Authenticity, as we will discuss later, authentication is in fact the front line to all the security techniques. Once you log on, you provide your user ID and password and probably two-factor authentication. You provide a code. Once you do this, all the other security mechanisms and services can work because of their successful authentication. They are triggered. It's like this is the initial configuration to all the security services after this. Accountability is slightly different. Accountability here talks about the security goal that generates the requirement for actions of an entity to be traced uniquely to that entity. يعني إيه الكلام ده? When somebody performs an action on the system, and this action causes some kind of breach or problem in the system, I need to be able to look at probably مثلا the logs, and then trace back and say, oh, okay, so this action caused this problem, and this action is done uniquely by this person. So I can trace back and say, oh, okay, you did it. And when I go to the person and say, you did it, he cannot deny and say, no, I didn't. Because everything in the system says that you are the one who did that action and nobody else. So as accountability requires multiple things, and we'll discuss that. So these are basic security services, okay, or pillars, which requires one or more techniques and mechanisms to facilitate that or to be able to support this. تفضل. Yes, this is what I'm getting at. Non-repudiation is in fact part of accountability. So non-repudiation معناها ايه؟ When you send something, so there is a notarization or a notarized entity or certificate authority or someone in the middle or third party that says, oh, okay, so Amr actually sent this and nobody else. When another person on the other side receives that, okay, the notarization says, okay, so what Amr sent has been received by this person and nobody else. So if Amr comes later and say, no, I did not send the information, no, you cannot deny. So this is non-repudiation. But accountability requires more than that. Accountability requires the fact that when you look at the system logs, okay, Amr sent this information. This information caused a problem. I can trace it back to Amr. واضح الفرق? So non-repudiation makes sure that whenever a message is sent, I can relate it to a specific entity, okay? But accountability talks about more than that. Accountability here talks about the fact that if there is a problem in the system, I can always trace it back and say, you did it, and you cannot deny, because we have non-repudiation. So accountability requires, in addition to non-repudiation, requires like system logs or audit trails or something like this that we can look at. And from these audit trails, we can say, oh, okay, so this problem has been caused by the action that Amr did, so I can go back to Amr and say, you did it, and you cannot deny that. ده اللي بيسموه في in MOI or Ministry of Interior بيسموه الايه؟ البحث الجنائي اللي هو forensics. Okay, forensics. So we have a course about forensics, by the way. So forensics is all about focusing on accountability and how I can trace any problem back to the origin uniquely without any vagueness. Okay, it's not easy.
Yes, we read the zeros and ones.
No, but in the system logs, usually it's high level. So you get all the information. You get the timestamp, it's system logs. So again, it requires some designers to design what actually to log. And even the security of these logs have to be taken into consideration. But in case of any problem, in case of system error, when I go to these logs, the logs are designed carefully and efficiently in a way that allows me to say, this action has been done by Amr, so I can go back to Amr, and Amr cannot say that I didn't do it. واضح? Okay. طيب, security attack, we all know security attack. It's any action that compromises the security of information or entity or resource or data or something. This is very important. We need to know and understand very well the difference between security mechanism and security service. All these pillars that we talk about, we can call them security services. ماشي? We have distinguished these services because they are pillars. They are very important, and these are the minimum requirements to secure a system or information. But there are more than that. We'll talk about other types of services. So security mechanism here talks about a process or an algorithm or like some programmatic procedure, okay, that is designed to deter, prevent, or recover from a security attack. ماشي كده؟ So we know the attack, but the mechanism is like مثلا for cryptographic we have ايه الميكانيزم algorithms زي ايه؟ RSA تمام. RSA is a security mechanism or a technique or algorithm. كل دول ايه interchangeably can be used. Or triple DIS or AES sorry. ماشي؟ All of these are algorithm or security mechanism. Security service usually requires one or more of these mechanisms to facilitate the service. So I need to provide, like for example, confidentiality, integrity, and we'll see other types of services. Okay. So a processing or communication service that enhances the security of data or part of the system and intended to counter the security attacks, and they make use of one or more of these security mechanisms. So in order to have confidentiality, I need to have an encipherment algorithm or mechanism, okay? And I need to have other mechanisms like padding. I need to have another mechanism which is like routing control. We'll talk about this, okay? So in order to have confidentiality, cryptographic techniques are not enough. I need to provide cryptographic mechanism, and I need to provide padding, I need to provide this and this and this in order to make the concealment or the confidentiality valid. ماشي؟ طيب.
So security service all of this?
Yes, يعني مثلا I need to provide confidentiality at the routing layer. Okay? That's a service. In order to do this, at the routing layer, definitely you need يعني encipherment اللي هو cryptographic technique. Definitely you need this, triple this, AES, anything, RSA, whatever. Elliptic curve, whatever. So that's for encryption. But is encryption enough to provide confidentiality? Probably not. And we'll talk about padding. I need padding. In routing layer, I need command routing control. So I need all of these mechanisms to be in place just to provide the service of confidentiality at the routing layer. I didn't talk about availability, I didn't talk about integrity, I didn't talk about anything else. So a service might require one or more mechanisms to facilitate that service. Okay? Usually command the service sometimes it could be layer-based or it could be layer-agnostic. To provide مثلا confidentiality at the transport layer is different from providing confidentiality at the network layer. It's different from providing confidentiality at the network access layer. And that's why we have this course. That's exactly why we have this course. Okay, is to understand how to provide that service at this layer. Okay, but definitely we have system level security or intrusion detection, which is layer agnostic. I need to secure the entire system from intrusions. That's it. It's not specific to a particular layer or device. Okay. Type. When we talk about security attacks, we can divide security attacks into passive attacks and active attacks. And again, many of you know the difference between the two. So when it comes to passive attacks, I need to mitigate the fact or the possibility of anyone listening to the communication. So, of course, you will see this a lot, Alice and Bob. Yani all security books, you see Alice and Bob. And this is Darth or Eve. Sometimes they call it Eve, whatever. So the attacker is Darth or Eve, okay? But Alice and Bob are yani very common in security books. So Alice and Bob refer to two legitimate, people or entities or devices that are trying to communicate. Okay, so passive attack talks about the ability of Darth to be able to listen. So when it comes to passive attacks, if I can listen to the information being exchanged and I can extract critical information, then that's a problem. More often than not, the passive attack is done with the future intention of doing a active attack. ماشي? So when I listen to the information, I'm trying to get your مثلا credit card in order to use it later on to perform a certain action. Or to get your user ID and password is to try to do a مثلا impersonation, or I try to access the system using your credentials and do all types of attacks or active attacks to the system. So active attack talks about the fact that when I listen, I get critical information and then I try to like impersonate someone, corrupt the data that is being exchanged, ماشي? Or compromise a system using denial of service attacks. So all of these are examples of active attacks. ماشي? واضح? Any questions? So this is the difference between the two. So passive attack talks about, in passive attacks, we can classify it into two, slightly different approaches to passive attacks. So we can listen and try to extract useful information from what I'm listening to, okay? So, and this talks about the fact that if I listen to an information which is not being concealed, then I can extract whatever information I want, right? So that's easy. But there is like some traffic analysis. It difference بقى. What is traffic analysis? حد عارف؟ Traffic analysis is supposed to be, it's a type of passive attack which is done even if the data is being encrypted. Okay? So I listen to the encrypted data, yet I try to extract some properties. طبعا now we have machine learning and stuff. So these properties might be features, and if I extract some enough features, I can in fact reverse engineer and get to the data sometimes. So traffic analysis usually requires significant intelligence before you can get to any type of useful information. طب يعني احنا we're talking about concealment of information. What type of properties can I extract? ايه اللي ممكن يعني data is being encrypted. So if I encrypt the data, that's the end of it. What can you get?
The same data is being sent multiple times.
Okay, that's one. Another thing, if the data has like fixed length, even by sending data with fixed length, that's small piece of information that I get. If I know that at the beginning of accessing a system, you are required to send your user ID and password. So if I know that you are accessing the system and I listen to that, I know that in the beginning of accessing any system, normally you have to send your user ID and password. So if I get the encrypted data, I know that this encrypted data contains at least your user ID and password, right? So all of these are properties. So I'm trying to accumulate some properties using traffic analysis. What else? If you send, when we talk about networks, we send packets at the end, or we send segments or something, right? So as we have learned from networks, and again I warn you, you need to have some networking background. Segments or any kind of protocol data unit has headers, bravo عليك. Headers and payload, right? In many cases, security techniques cannot encrypt headers. They cannot. And I will talk about many scenarios, and I'll tell you why we cannot encrypt the headers. Okay, why we cannot encrypt the headers. Keep this as a question, we'll answer it later. Okay, in many cases, you cannot encrypt the header. So the header can, in fact, give you many properties. IP address, route, you can get many information from the header. Okay, so I accumulate all these properties, and then somehow I can really try to use these headers, and then I can design like a machine. I'm not giving you ideas to attack a system, but you can get all these properties, and from these properties, you get it into machine learning, you put it as features, and then let the machine learning to try to guess what the key is. Once you get the key, you can decrypt information. Okay, and the more information is being sent, okay, the more properties you can get, and then I can guess the key at the end. Okay. So that's traffic analysis. It requires usually significant amount of intelligence and efforts. Okay, but good news for attackers is that there is no system or security service that is 100% attack proof. That's the bad news for good people. Okay. طيب. What are similar to a passive attacks? We talked about how to extract direct information or do some traffic analysis. Active attacks here talks about many examples, but like masquerade. Masquerade talks about impersonation. This is one of the active attacks that requires the attacker to know some credentials about the legitimate user. Okay, like for example, the simplest, someone has your user ID and password. So he impersonates you, and try to access the system as if he is you or she is you. Okay, so that's masquerade, or we call it impersonation. Part of this also is man-in-the-middle attacks. Two people are trying to communicate, then I'm Amr, so I tell Bob, I'm Alice, and I tell Alice, I'm Bob, and both of them are sending me information, and then I keep sending altered information to Bob or altered information to Alice. Okay, so this is the example of man-in-the-middle attack. So masquerade here is about impersonation. Replay usually is very, very simple attack to do. But luckily, it's also very simple to mitigate. Replay talks about what? No. So, يعني, I have. So this is Bob. This is Alice. Okay, Bob is sending information, and the information is confidential, is sealed, is encrypted, is everything. Okay. Okay, so we think that this information is secure. And here, Darth or Eve, what they do is that they say, okay, so I'm going to get a copy of this. Of course, you can easily get a copy of the encrypted data, صح? And then I will relay it back again. The same data. I don't do anything. Okay? Replay. Just by doing that, this data becomes corrupted. صح? In many cases, this might actually be corrupted, right? A very common example of this is like people use the replay attack to steal cars. Sometimes. Like you are walking مثلا in the mall and you are parking your car مثلا few meters away or 1 kilometer away from you. Of course, your car cannot be used to open the car because you are far away from the car, right? But the way that this key works is like it's like beacons that get sent from the key to the car to authenticate the key to the car, right? So this beacon, of course, is encrypted, is secure, is everything, and they use low power to try to send these beacons so that they make sure that you have to be close to the car. Okay. So someone in the mall, he can actually get close to you and he can copy these beacons from your key, and he can relay it in real time to another person with very high power, to another person close to the car, and this other person can open the door. Just by replaying the same beacons. I didn't do anything. I don't have the key. I don't have anything. Okay, but just by replaying the same beacons, I was able to steal the car. Again, I'm not giving you ideas to do that, but the idea here is that to try to understand all these attacks in order to be able to mitigate it. But luckily, these types of replay attacks are very easy to mitigate. Very, very easy to mitigate. Okay? We'll talk about why. How, ماشي? طبعا, when we talk about modification of the messages, when we talk about the modification of the messages, this is what we call integrity. We're affecting the integrity of the message. So we can alter the message in any way, even by replaying, by the way, or inserting something in the middle, or corrupting the header of a message. Okay, so we can have a packet being sent to another destination, and as we said, the header is in many cases it's not encrypted. Okay. Denial of service attack is very hard. Denial of service attack talks about the fact that I can use all the devices on the internet. When I compromise all these devices, I can initiate some attacks, some requests, even ping. I can have like a ping request being sent from these devices, 1 million device or 2 million devices across the internet. They send the same ping request to a specific server, to one server. In order to appreciate this, if you open the internet and search for distributed denial of service attack map, so you will see many websites. They have real time. They can show you what is the denial of service attacks that happen from any point to any point on the internet. you will see it's like a web. It's a big mess. Okay, and we deal with this on a minute basis. We have huge amount of, and chances are, even if the request is illegitimate, is wrong, is whatever, but at least it takes resources to just process this request. And that's what the denial of service attack relies on. Even if you have the ability to reject that request, you will spend some time to process it. Spending some time meaning that you will spend processing power. And this processing power, if it's significant enough, it can bring the whole system down. So this can happen on DNS, the domain name service, can happen on any server. And this is one of the reasons I keep telling my kids and I keep telling people I know, do not leave your laptop open overnight. Sometimes people make it, they think it's easy. You leave it open, and chances are if the laptop or a workstation is idle, it can easily be compromised and being used to initiate denial of service attack on servers. Very easily, okay? So denial of service attack also happens at every layer in the network. In the physical layer, I can send a jamming signal. That's a type of denial of service attacks. I can send a jamming signal to like a drone or to anything to bring it down. Okay? In the Ethernet level or the network access layer level, I can send a signal over wired, or in the network layer, I can send a denial of service request to a router to bring it down. Okay? Any questions؟ واضح طيب. A third standard party. So we talked about what? We talked about NIST. Okay? Talked about ITU. And here we talk about ISOC. ISOC has like a subgroup. It's called the IETF. And we talked about IETF a lot in networking, right? In any network course, chances are you have come across IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force. They produce by RFC. So NIST produce FIBS, ITU produce X800 or whatever, and IETF, they produce RFCs. All of these are standard documents. So RFCs here, they define what we call security services. So we talked about security mechanisms or techniques, and we'll talk about them again. Here, security services talks about a processing or communication service provided by a system to give a specific kind of protection. And usually a service could be layer-based or layer-agnostic. A security level or a security or a specific level of protection at a specific layer, like for example, network access layer, routing layer, things like that, or a security service for the entire system without focusing on a particular layer. So in the X800 that produced by me, which standard body? ITUT. ITUT talks about the security pillars or security services that we talked about: confidentiality, availability, integrity. But here we see something different, right? Access control. So these are slight differences between each standard body and another, okay? Some of them, they focus on certain pillars. Others, they focus on other types of services. And all of these are laid out or detailed in these specification documents. So they talk about access control. Access control here talks about what? Talks about the level or the privilege that the user has to access a particular resource or a system. So if you have like admin privileges, then probably you can see everything. If you have staff privilege, مثلا, like for example, if I'm as a staff member, if I look at Blackboard, probably I can see more information compared to what you can see as a student or as a user, okay, or as a guest. So these are different levels of privileges that the user has to access the same resource. So the same device or the same resource or the same system can be accessed by different levels of users, and they can see the system in different levels. Also, we talked about non-repudiation. Okay, non-repudiation here talks about the fact that, okay, so this is Alice and this is Bob. Okay, so when Alice sends information, and this information is concealed, and part of this concealment, as we will see, there is a part that gets added to this in order to make it secure. We'll talk about this. And in this part, we embed some kind of a identity to Alice. Okay? So there is usually, there is a third party, we call it a notarization. That's not Darth بقى. This is a notarization entity, like for example, a certificate authority, that notarizes any message that Alice sends and notarizes any message that Bob receives, and the other way around. Why is this? Why we do this process? Because we need to make sure that every message that Alice sends, that it's indeed sent by Alice, and when we go to Alice saying that you sent this, Alice cannot say no, I didn't send it. Okay? Because embedded in this message is your identity, so nobody else can send that. Okay? Of course, someone might say, what if we know the user ID and password of Alice? Nobody can say that this is not Alice, right? And that's why we said authentication is the front line of all security services. If authentication is breached, no security service can work correctly. Again, if Bob later on says, I did not receive that, no, you received it. Because we can notarize and we can acknowledge that you received it. ماشي? Other than this, we talked about authentication, we talked about data confidentiality and integrity and all these things. طيب, just not to overwhelm you, so we'll try to make this as the last slide. So, what are the security services? We talked about many security services before, confidentiality and all of this. So we have some idea now about security services. But as we said, in addition to the house pillars, we have like walls and we have some decoration and we have other things. So, so authentication, there is like some details to every single service we talked about. So for example, when it comes to authentication, and as you will see, for many of these services, we have like long-term connection-oriented and short-term connectionless. Again, you need to know some background about networking. So when I say connection-oriented or connectionless, I assume that you know that. So very briefly, when we talk about connection-oriented, like TCP, for example, TCP establishes long-term connection. Okay, long-term connection is like once you start establishing a TCP session or TCP connection, this connection is valid for a significant period of time and information can be exchanged through this connection. Okay? What does this have to do with the security services? All these security services can be done once per connection. Okay? So when we talk about peer entity authentication, here we used an association with a logical connection. So this is the connection-oriented authentication, which means that when I establish a TCP connection, I can establish on top of it what we call ايه؟ حد عارف السكيورتي بروتوكول in the transport layer is called ايه؟ حد عارف؟ TLS. Okay? Transport layer service. So I can establish with the TCP connection, I can establish a TLS session or connection, and I can perform the authentication once for this session. Okay? So I perform the authentication once for this session, which means that the authentication that I have done will remain valid all the time that this connection remains. It's once per connection. واضح كلام؟
Is this the token, using token?
لا 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 لا, this is different.
Like session.
Session بالضبط. So I establish a connection. On top of this connection, I can exchange information or session information, right? So while this session is alive, okay, the authentication that I have done will be valid, which means that I don't have to authenticate myself for every single message that is being communicated over this network. وإلا يعني ما doesn't make sense يعني. For every click you do on the internet, you have to your username and password. Your username and password. It's يعني cannot work this way. This is slightly different مثلا from مثلا a service like email. When we send an email, emails usually work using UDP. عارفين UDP? Again, if you don't have background about network, you will have a problem. When we talk about UDP is connectionless. ماشي? So this is a data origin authentication. Here talks about I just need to send one message, so I just need to perform authentication for this particular data or message only. It's not for a connection. It's like for one piece of data. So if I'm sending an email over UDP, it's connectionless, so I need to authenticate myself for this particular email or message. And when I send another email, my client has to authenticate itself again to the server. Every time I send something, it's usually very short term, so there is no long-term connection. That's what I'm trying to say. There is no long-term connection. There is no continuous communication. واضح الكلام? So this is the slight difference between per entity authentication and data origin authentication. So authentication is valid on the level of connection or on the level of a message. That's the difference. And you will see this. And you will see this valid, for example, for also data confidentiality. Should I conceal the information, all the information or all the packets related to this particular connection, and use the same مثلا encryption technique and encryption configuration for this connection, or every time I have to renew the security context for each message that I'm trying to send? So the same thing happens for authentication or for data confidentiality or for also integrity. You will see connection integrity or connectionless integrity. Okay? So it's either on the level of the connection or on the level of the message. All these services are valid for connection-oriented or for connectionless. واضح كلام؟ طيب, when it comes to data confidentiality, we have data confidentiality, connection confidentiality, or connectionless confidentiality, or selected field confidentiality. What does that mean? Selected fields is what we talked about. We said that a packet should have a header, right? And when we talk about encryption, we don't necessarily have to, and in many cases, we cannot actually encrypt the entire message, including the header. Why? حد عارف؟ أي بالضبط. طب يعني why source and destination؟ طب ما هو الديستنيشن ممكن يديكريبت. Okay, so I'm challenging you now. So this is Alice, right? And this is Bob, right? Supposedly, when we talk about Alice and Bob, they are legitimate users, which means that they have the same key. Okay? So whatever is being sent by Alice, even if it's encrypted, Bob should be able to decrypt. أيوة, برافو عليك. That's the key. So in order to send this message appropriately, there is different network devices in the middle that gets engaged in this process. The router doesn't know the key and should not actually know the key, right? Imagine if the routers have all the keys of all the entities that are trying to communicate over the internet. It's not possible. It's not scalable. It's not scalable, right? It's not possible. Even if, let alone that this is not legitimate aslan, it's not possible. So, but routers, they need to perform routing, and routing requires that you have to know the destination address. So I cannot encrypt the destination address. Okay? So that's what we refer to as selective field confidentiality. Similarly, we see برضو in the here in the integrity there is also selected field in the integrity, and we'll talk about how we perform integrity. So when we talk about how to perform integrity, in fact, in order to ensure integrity, we append something to the segment or to the data. So this appended part, or we call it hashing, or sometimes we call it digital signature. This digital signature is in fact a mathematical operation of all the content of the data. So, but in fact, we select part of the data, not the entire segment and field, and the header. We have to select certain fields where we have to design this digital signature. So also at the level of the integrity, or at the service of integrity, we also sometimes select the fields where we perform the integrity.
But it is still possible to encrypt the headers, right? Just like how the Tor works. Like how only the next hop gets decrypted.
Yes, but Tor requires onion routers. Onion routers are not normal routers. Onion routers are security routers. So these are designated routers. Okay? That's a good question. And in addition to selected field, there is a traffic flow confidentiality. What is this what does this refer to بقى? Traffic flow confidentiality talks about the fact that in addition to encryption, we need to do something else, because we know that there is traffic analysis as an attack, right? So someone can collect some properties of the data even if it's encrypted. Okay, so we have to really think how to mitigate traffic analysis. So one of the properties that traffic analysis looks at is the length of the data. If the length of the data is fixed, that's one property. Okay, so I know that the packet is fixed because the encrypted packet is fixed. Okay, and we'll see the encryption algorithm. If you enter the same length of packet, you get the same length of encrypted data. Okay, and that's a property. So how can we hide this property from the attacker? Padding, bravo عليك. So we do padding. We'll talk about padding, but padding for confidentiality, not the normal network padding, because network padding is done in networks a lot, but not with the purpose of securing information. It's used for data alignment and stuff like that. We don't have to go through that, but here we talk about security padding. Security padding is slightly different. Again, we will talk about all the details of all of this. Don't worry. If you don't absorb all this information, don't worry, don't panic. We'll talk about all of this in details. ماشي? There is also another interesting thing that we normally do to confuse traffic analysis, like what? Routing control. Okay? So we know that, like for example, if I'm talking about a network with many routers and stuff, and I'm sending all the data in this route or this path, that's a property. Okay, that's a property. So the attacker can listen to this router, and he keeps listening until he breaks the communication. That's easy. Not easy, but I'm giving, an attack surface. We'll talk about attack surface. I'm giving the facility to the attacker to utilize and try to break the communication. I'm giving him all the clues. Okay? But I can use routing control. How? I can send some information this way, some information this way, some information this way. So this way, even if he listens to a particular device, he cannot get any properties. Increase the randomness or the uncertainty of how the data is being exchanged. Okay? In addition to encrypting the content itself. So all of these are mechanisms, techniques to provide a confidentiality. واضح كده؟ طيب, so we talked about connection integrity, but there is connection integrity with recovery. What does that mean? So integrity معناها when a data is being altered, I can ensure the integrity. معناها إيه? If the integrity is being altered, I can detect that, right? But integrity can also include a recovery or prevention. So not only can I detect, I can detect and correct. So if a data is being altered, not only do I detect it, I can correct it on spot. But that requires extra techniques. So this is the with recovery or without recovery. That's the slight difference. I can detect and prevent, or I can detect and correct, or I can just detect. What is the simplest correction action? Reject. So if I can detect, I can reject. Okay? A data is being communicated. La. This data is altered. Reject. That's simple. But that might affect the efficiency of the communication because I can reject huge amount of data because of this alteration, right? But if I can correct it, okay, it's a small correction, but it actually affects the efficiency of communication because I can keep the communication flowing even if there is some slight error into it. Even if there is some slight alteration to the data, I can always correct it and move on. Okay? But that's not easy. It requires extra mechanisms. واضح كده؟
This is the job for the firewalls usually? Or
Yes, يعني an example for this is firewall. Although firewall is slightly different because firewall it protects the intrusions, so it's system level security.
correctly?
Yes, but firewall has this. Firewall can detect the acceptable requests from the illegitimate requests. Okay, and sometimes firewalls can, in fact, not only accept and reject, it can, in fact, also correct or prevent. So there is prevention. Okay, it can detect intrusion and it can prevent the intrusion. Prevent intrusion it requires more extra work. Okay, if I can detect intrusion, that doesn't mean that the intrusion did not affect the system. It affected the integrity of the system. Okay, but at least I can detect that it happened, so I can avoid it later, or I can know that at least this server is compromised. Okay, so I know that this server is compromised. So go and do something in this server. Okay, but prevention talks about something extra. If an intrusion happens, I can not only detect it, but I can prevent it from affecting any parts of the system. The compromise will not happen. Okay, but this requires extra work. واضح الفرق? So detection and prevention, or only detection. Detection does not prevent the damage from happening. Okay, but you have to work on the damage itself and try to recover from it, which takes time.
Just knowing that there is an attack.
Yes, just knowing that there is an attack, of course, is good. Okay,
I have to take action.
you have to take action, and usually, if you only detect, usually the action takes time because the damage happened. Okay, but you have to work on recovering from the damage. Okay, and usually that takes time. Prevention talks about not only detection, but I will prevent the damage from happening. The damage will never happen. That's the difference. واضح يا جماعة? Any okay. I think that's it. So non-repudiation, we talked about non-repudiation at the origin, which means the source cannot deny that he sent the information. On non-repudiation at the destination, which means the destination cannot deny that he or she received the information. And this is usually done by an intermediate or a third party notarization, or we'll talk a lot about certificate authority that always makes sure and verifies and vets any kind of transmission. Any questions? I see the faces like enough for today, صح? Okay, so we'll stop here inshallah.